Hey guys, guten Tag. I recently moved from Canada to Germany with my dog, Oakley. And this here is Oakley. He is a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. He's just over 1 year old. And he's been having so much fun here, haven't you? Before moving here, I found it hard to find videos about moving with your dog to another country and what that process was like. So I decided to share my experience. The requirements for bringing my dog from Canada to Germany was having him microchipped, rabies vaccine, health certificate from my vet, as well as having it signed off by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Really important to make sure that your dog is microchipped before getting the rabies vaccine, just so that when they do get the rabies vaccine, that information does show on the microchip. You have to make sure that the rabies vaccine is done at least 21 days before you travel in order for it to be valid. In Oakley's situation, he got his rabies vaccine when he was a puppy, and it was only valid for 1 year, and it was expiring at the end of March, and we were coming here beginning of March. So I had him booked in end of February to get his booster shot, which is valid for 3 years. However, since it was done less than 21 days before traveling, we did have to get a special addendum saying that he got his shot done while the other one was still valid. Some countries only recognize the 1 year vaccine, or even if you get the 3 year one, they only recognize it as being valid for 1 year. So you want to double check with the country that you're going to and which vaccine you did get for your dog. Thankfully, Germany does recognize the 3 year vaccine. So the next thing I had to do was book an appointment with our vet for him to get a health certificate. Now, this has to be done within 10 days of traveling. So we were flying out March 7th, so I booked this for March 1st. The health certificate is really important that you get the right one and that the vet fills it out accurately and proper. So the best thing to do is check both your country and the country you're going to, their requirements, and any countries that you may be having a layover in. Since we were flying into Amsterdam and then driving to Germany, I had to get the health certificate that was in the Dutch language and English. That can be found online, and I can put a link below with all of the different PDFs that you can download in all the different languages. I had to send that form to my vet ahead of time, and then during the appointment, the vet simply just checked him over, checked his heart, all of that kind of stuff, making sure he was healthy. She ended up filling out the form, and we picked it up the next day. I also had to make an appointment beforehand with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, so the CFIA, and that was scheduled for March 4th. So I went in that day. I didn't have to bring Oakley. I just had to bring the health certificate as well as his rabies vaccine certificate. I brought both of those just so that there wouldn't be any questions with him getting it in less than 21 days of traveling, as well as his microchip certificate. When I got there, there was actually a couple issues with the health certificate. The addresses that were in there weren't the correct ones, and they were in the wrong spot. They also wanted the vet to fill out an addendum saying that the rabies vaccine that he just got was done while the other one was still valid. So I had to quickly rush back to the vet. I gave them a call, had to rush back there. Thankfully, they were able to quickly do that, those changes, and then I was able to go back to the CFIA to get them to sign off on it. It did take about another hour for them to do that. Traveling to the Netherlands and to Germany is thankfully really easy compared to a lot of other countries. Some countries require you to have more vaccines, certain tests that you need to do, sometimes even like between 6 months to a year in advance. Sometimes they require that your dog is quarantined for a certain amount of days upon arrival. On the day of our flight, I took Oakley to the dog park. I met up with one of my friends and her dogs, and we just let them play, wear out their energy. That morning, I just gave them a bit of food and water, and then we ended up taking an Uber to the airport. I had already checked in online. I still had to see an airline attendant in order to get my baggage tags and for them to go over the documents that I had for Oakley. They also needed to make sure that the carrier was the right size. They needed to check him. I also had to sign a waiver just saying that the carrier was the right dimensions, that it wasn't heavier than a certain weight. I believe that was 18 pounds. That document is kept on file for any other time that I fly with that airline. And I flew with KLM. After they checked everything, we got to go through security. Now, security can be a little bit intimidating when traveling with your dog for the first time. Thankfully, I have traveled with Oakley domestically in Canada a few times. I like to keep him in his bag, put all of my things up first, and the last bin, I will take his harness and leash off, put his things in, and I will just carry him through. They always swab the palm of your hands and your waistband. Once I get all my things, I just put Oakley in his carrier and he just stays there while I collect all of my things together. And then I put his harness and leash back on. Once we were through, I took him to a quiet area in the airport where we were able to just relax for a little bit. I was able to give him a bit of food, and I also gave him some medication. So you can talk to your vet ahead of time about medication if you feel like your dog needs it. Oakley is already very calm and he has flown, so I wasn't too worried about that. This was the longest flight he was going on. The flight from Vancouver to Amsterdam is 9.5 hours, and the longest flight he has done is 5 hours. So I wanted to give him some medication before the flight just so that he could stay calm and relaxed throughout the whole duration of the flight. Before boarding, I took him to a pet relief area. Now, each airport usually has a pet relief area depending where you are. I've seen some that are outside. If you are outside of security, you can go there. Otherwise, they usually are just a little area, and they can be just a simple little grass pad with a fire hydrant. They usually do smell pretty bad, and I know Oakley doesn't really like using them. It took a little bit for him to use it. So definitely give yourself lots of time with that for your dog to get used to that. The pet relief area in the International Vancouver Airport is actually really nice. You do have your own room beside all the other bathrooms. So we got to go in the area. They have the grass pads, but they also have a sink there as well as a hose that you can use to clean the area. Then we went and boarded the plane, and I just had to keep him in the carrier underneath the seat in front of me. Oakley does really well. He just sleeps for the whole flight. I think he moved around a little bit around the 8-hour mark. When we landed, we had to collect my baggage and then go through customs. I had to go through the section where you are declaring something. So I had to hand over all the documents that I had for him. They looked it over, and they also got a microchip scanner just to check that the microchip number matched the documents. And then they stamped that, signed off, and we were good to go. We took him outside to try to go to the bathroom, but he was more interested in all the birds flying around and chasing those. So we ended up just getting in the car and driving a little ways to a rest area on the side of the road. And we grabbed a bite to eat, and he was able to go to the bathroom there. And then it was about a 4-hour drive from Amsterdam to where we were heading in Germany. On the way, we did stop off at a pet store just to pick up some food for him and a couple other little things. Oakley did really well with adopting. However, I think his jet lag was actually worse than mine. I was thankfully able to adopt quite quickly, but for some reason, he woke up at 6 o'clock every single morning without fail for about the first week, which is very unusual because he loves to sleep in. So I just have to wake up, take him out, and then go back to bed, and he would be fine. He's really been loving life here. I have been saying I think he was meant to be a German dog. Where we lived in Vancouver, we were up on the 31st floor, and he's always loved looking out the windows, but he's extra excited to be looking out at the countryside and all the animals right there at ground level. He really enjoys sitting on the windowsill. I'm really excited to explore more of Germany with him, as Germany is quite pet friendly, a lot more compared to Canada. There is a lot of restaurants and pubs that you can bring your dogs into, as well as on transport. From what I've seen so far, as long as they are a small dog about the size of a house cat and they can go in a carrier, then it's okay to bring them on transit without a ticket. Otherwise, if you do have a bigger dog, you can still bring them on. You do just have to get them a ticket, which usually you can do a child's ticket or a reduced fare. But I would also just double check that with the transit that you are using. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you do have any questions about flying with your dog or traveling in general, going to another country, definitely feel free to reach out and let me know, and I'll do my best to get back to you and answer any of your questions. If you do want to follow us on any social media, I will leave those links down below, as well as any other links for the forms or websites where you can find some information about the rules of bringing your dogs to another country. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching, and auf Wiedersehen.